They rose early the next morning, leaving their silken beds behind. The sun was shining brightly, and a gentle wind blew from the south. For a full half-hour Jip stood with his nose in the air, sniffing and concentrating. Finally, he trotted back to the doctor, shaking his head. "I don't smell any snuff yet," he announced. "We'll have to wait. The wind needs to change. It has to come from the east." They waited. The wind did indeed shift to the east around 3 o'clock that afternoon. Jip once again took his position, sniffing intently, but still nothing. He couldn't catch the faintest scent of snuff. The little boy, who had been watching with such hope, was terribly disappointed. His shoulders slumped, and he began to cry again, his small voice trembling as he said that no one seemed able to find his uncle for him. Jip, however, remained confident. He quietly spoke to the doctor. "Tell him not to worry. When the wind changes to the west, I'll find his uncle. I'll find him even if he's all the way in China, as long as he's still using his black rappy snuff." And so they waited. For 3 long days, the wind blew from every direction but the one they needed. Finally, on a Friday morning, just as the sky was beginning to lighten, the west wind arrived. A fine rainy mist hung over the sea like a thin, grey fog. The air was soft, warm, and wet, perfect conditions for carrying a scent. The moment Jip awoke, he knew. He scrambled upstairs to the deck and poked his nose into the damp air. His whole body began to tremble with excitement. He went absolutely wild, rushing back down the stairs to wake the doctor. "Doctor!" he barked, practically bouncing off the walls. "I've got it! Doctor, wake up! Listen, I've got it!" The wind's from the west, and it smells of nothing but snuff. It's strong. Come on, let's start the ship quick. The doctor tumbled out of his bed, still half asleep, and hurried to the rudder to steer the ship. "Okay, I'm going to the front," Jip called out, already positioning himself at the very bow. "You just watch my nose. Whichever way I point it, you turn the ship the same way." The man can't be far off, not with the smell this strong, and this lovely wet wind is perfect. Now watch me. And so all that morning a strange and wonderful scene unfolded. Jip stood like a statue at the front of the ship, his nose twitching, pointing the way for the doctor to steer it. The little boy and all the other animals stood in a silent circle, their eyes wide with wonder, completely captivated by the little dog's incredible skill. Around lunchtime, the constant sniffing seemed to be taking its toll on Jip. He looked worried. He asked Dab-Dab the duck to go and tell the doctor that he needed to speak with him urgently. Dab-Dab waddled over and fetched the doctor from the stern of the ship. When the doctor arrived, Jip didn't waste any time. "The boy's uncle is starving," he said, his voice low and serious. "We have to make this ship go as fast as it possibly can." The doctor looked surprised. "How do you know he's starving?" he asked. "Because there is no other smell in the west wind but snuff," Jip explained patiently. "If the man were cooking or even just eating any kind of food, I would smell it too. But he isn't. He hasn't even had fresh water to drink. The only thing he's had is snuff, and lots of it. We're getting closer to him all the time. The smell is getting stronger every minute. But please make the ship go faster. I am absolutely certain the man is starving." "All right," the doctor said, his face now grim with concern. He immediately sent Dab-Dab to ask the swallows for their help. They needed to pull the ship just as they had done when they were escaping the pirates. The brave little birds didn't hesitate. They came down in a great flock and once more harnessed themselves to the front of the ship, and then the boat surged forward. It went bounding and leaping through the waves at a terrifying speed. It was moving so fast that the fish in the sea had to jump for their lives to get out of the way and avoid being run over. The incredible velocity got all the animals tremendously excited. They gave up watching Jip and instead turned their gaze to the sea ahead, scanning the horizon for any sign of land or an island where the starving fishermen might be stranded. But hour after hour went by, and still the ship rushed on over the same vast flat sea. There was nothing. No land, no islands, no ships, nothing came in sight. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, and still they raced onward, guided only by a dog's nose and the persistent, desperate scent of snuff on the wind. The hope that had filled the air that morning was now mixed with a growing sense of urgency, a race against time across the empty, endless ocean. And now the animals gave up chattering and sat around, silent, anxious, and miserable. The little boy again grew sad, and on Jip's face there was a worried look. At last, late in the afternoon, just as the sun was going down, the owl Tutu, who was perched on the tip of the mast, suddenly startled them all by crying out at the top of his voice, "Jip, Jip! I see a great, great rock in front of Uslaquai, out there where the sky and the water meet. See the sun shine on it like gold. Is the smell coming from there?" And Jip called back, "Yes, that's it. That is where the man is. At last. At last." And when they got nearer, they could see that the rock was very large as a big field. No trees grew on it, no grass, nothing. The great rock was as smooth and as bare as the back of a tortoise. Then the doctor sailed the ship right round the rock, but nowhere on it could a man be seen. All the animals screwed up their eyes and looked as hard as they could, and John Dolittle got a telescope from downstairs. But not one living thing could they spy, or even a gull, nor a starfish, nor a shred of seaweed. They all stood still and listened, straining their ears for any sound. But the only noise they heard was the gentle lapping of the little waves against the sides of their ship. Then they all started calling, "Hallo there, hallo," till their voices were hoarse. But only the echo came back from the rock, and the little boy burst into tears and said, "I am afraid I shall never see my uncle any more. What shall I tell them when I get home?" But Jip called to the doctor. "He must be there, he must. The smell goes on no further. He must be there, I tell you. Sail the ship close to the rock and let me jump out on it." So the doctor brought the ship as close as he could and let down the anchor. Then he and Jip got out of the ship onto the rock. Jip at once put his nose down close to the ground and began to run all over the place. Up and down he went, back and forth, zigzagging, twisting, doubling and turning. And everywhere he went, the doctor ran behind him, close at his heels till he was terribly out of breath. At last Jip let out a great bark and sat down, and when the doctor came running up to him, he found the dog staring into a big, deep hole in the middle of the rock. "The boy's uncle is down there," said Jip quietly. "No wonder those silly eagles couldn't see him. It takes a dog to find a man." So the doctor got down into the hole, which seemed to be a kind of cave or tunnel, running a long way under the ground. Then he struck a match and started to make his way along the dark passage with Jip following behind. The doctor's match soon went out, and he had to strike another and another and another. At last the passage came to an end, and the doctor found himself in a kind of tiny room with walls of rock, and there, in the middle of the room, his head resting on his arms, lay a man with very red hair fast asleep. Jip went up and sniffed at something lying on the ground beside him. The doctor stooped and picked it up. It was an enormous snuff-box, and